Victoria 3 is a line-go-up simulator masquerading as a grand strategy game. And in Victoria 3, there are but two certainties. No, they're not death and taxes. They're spaghetti and construction. You can really think of construction as your line-go-up rate. And as such, most advice on how to play the game truly amounts to just more and more complicated ways to simply increase construction. But what if we just didn't build any construction? What if we chose a different path? What if we gave up the single most important tool in Victoria 3 and just didn't build any construction whatsoever? That will be our aim of today's video and run. And by no construction, I mean a single savior of a construction sector, because, as we will discover, you need at least one construction sector to turn on the investment pool. So, why did we pick Austria for a zero construction run? Well, I don't even think they're particularly close to being the best country for it. They do have one modifier that is a little bit interesting, which is that they don't have investment pool contribution efficiency. Now, normally, this modifier is incredibly bad, but for what we're going to be doing, since we're not building any construction sectors, the investment pool is going to swell up and get absolutely enormous, and we're never ever going to be able to drain it ever, so investment pool contribution efficiency is actually not a really good modifier for what we're going to be doing, and to that end, the prestige bonus is going to be kind of good. But more the reason we're playing Austria is because we want to kind of play the diplomatic man. We got to play the diplomatic game in order to make this sort of run work, even in the slightest. We're going to need to lean into both having a bunch of subjects, as well as really maneuvering and having a bunch of, power block members and this sorts of thing, of which we have gotten a very nice new tool here in Pivot of Empire in the diplomatic action of request embassy block, or block embassy, power block embassy, which is going to allow us to develop relations much better at no diplo cost. And so this strategy has gotten significantly better with new Pivot of Empire coming out. But that said, let's talk a little bit about two other countries that I think are probably better for this strategy as we kind of unpack the strategy and how it's going to work a little bit. We initially kind of got the idea while playing Prussia, while doing a German unification thing, when we discovered that unifying as Prussia might actually not be optimal. And the reason being is these really small powers, they probably don't tend to give you at least two construction sectors worth of economic value. They're very small, they don't have a lot of economic activity, they don't have a lot of population. It's really hard to squeeze two construction sectors out of them. However, they get 10 free base construction, and if you get a construction agreement with these guys, like we have with Mecklenburg, they will very often build in your country. They will very often build in your country for a couple reasons. One, they will choose to stop building in their country if they don't have an opportunity for a profitable building. So if you have really high prices in your market, you're pushing things, your market will be more profitable and they'll want to build there. But also, if they run out of infrastructure where they're building, they will not want to build there anymore and will instead always build in your country. And if they run out of population, available workers, they will also want to build in your country instead of theirs. And so Prussia, by virtue of having a ton of tiny little powers inside of their bloc, can get these investment agreements with all of them, and in doing so, kind of grind up to maybe getting around 200 free construction at kind of the best sort of performing version out of all these powers rather than annex them. And so this is where we first got the idea in mind, which is that if we don't have a lot of construction, but we get people to build in our country, then maybe we can do something such that we can go zero construction and instead spend all of our efforts towards getting these types of relationships where people will be building stuff inside of our country. So we decided to give this idea a little bit of a test, a dry run with France, which we thought was going to be a very good country for this. To be fair, it's probably still better than Austria. Similar to Austria, they have the prestige bonus, which is quite nice, and it's going to be better than migration because you're not going to be running out of pops really very easily if you're not constructing a lot, or pops available labor. And in fact, you might even want to decrease the amount of labor as you have coming in, because it's just going to cost you more bureaucracy and you won't won't be able to make use of the workers without construction. But secondarily, and more importantly, this state construction efficiency bonus is extremely strong for this strategy, because when the AI is deciding where to construct, when it has the choice between domestic and foreign, if they're not out of infrastructure and they're not out of labor and they have to choose between the two, they will take into consideration state construction efficiency. And so the fact that you are replacing your own investment pool contribution bonus with a state construction efficiency bonus makes France look very attractive. The problem is this run actually went horribly wrong. This run was very, very inefficacious. You notice here, we are running a negative balance, and to be fair, we are paying diplopacts for lobbies and bankrolls, but at medium taxes with zero construction, we're at minus 39k, which I thought was absolutely astounding when we kind of played into what we were doing. We're also running a whole bunch of consumption taxes too, and the thing is, we just have no kind of economic development. But beyond just not getting economic development really happening, there's a depressive effect on the economy. And we made a video on this where we kind of went into extensive detail the power of free money modifiers. But the fact that our investment pool has just been accumulating and accumulating and accumulating means that money's getting sucked out of the economy. What this ends up doing is this drives down prices. In particular, if we look at market prices, iron and wood are really cheap. Everything that is kind of in the construction line is tending to be pretty cheap. And so one of the problems is even though we have this construction efficiency bonus, or we've had it on and off throughout kind of the texture of this kind of speed, sloppy run, even though we've had this bonus, we have not been able to get, foreign governments to really construct in our country because of prices being so low that it has the depressed effect. The buildings aren't very profitable, and so the fact that we can construct them faster is not that big a deal. We have had foreign investment rights with America and Spain for a very considerable amount of time, and we've gotten basically zero buildings built from them, which is something that I was thinking was going to be a crux of what we might be able to execute. We might be able to get GPs to invest a lot, and I think they would be investing a lot more if our prices were up, but our prices are always going to be perma-depressed. We cannot trade. Trade is not effective enough to bring up the price of iron such that we can, such that it'll be profitable, so that foreign countries will want to be investing in it. It needs to be way more expensive, and so we're at a little bit of an impasse. Now, one of the ways we were thinking of trying to overcome this is we went for an ideological union because we wanted creative legislature and we wanted to do something a little bit different and interesting. Not saying that we thought creative legislature was best, but I thought there was a potential that it was the best because I was suffering under misapprehension. I thought we could enforce on our bloc members using ideological union, and I'm mistaken on this regard. I thought we could enforce their economic system, which you can only do on subjects. So the way we're going to be changing up the run for Austria is we're going to be more subject-oriented, but the reason that this is so critical is if we come into the economic systems, we can force people onto laissez-faire. This will force privatization, so they will have to put everything up for sale. Since they are our subjects, we will have investment rights in them, and because of that, when they put stuff up to sale, whenever they've constructed it with the national queue, our investment pool will be able to drain for the purchasing of their building. And this is a very critical thing, but not only that, if we can figure out a way to oscillate between laissez-faire and cooperative ownership, what we can do is we can go to cooperative ownership, everything will become owned by the local labor forces. I can't remember if this forces all of our foreign-owned buildings to become owned by the local labor forces as well. I can't remember exactly how that works. Depending on how that works, this is either going to be a lot better or a lot worse. But after we swap to cooperative ownership and kill their investment class, then we swap back to laissez-faire, or have them force them to swap back to laissez-faire. And if we can execute this, we can allow our country to buy all the foreign buildings. And so the idea will be, kind of moving forward, is we are going to try and play an extremely tall Austria, where we have a whole bunch of subjects and we own all of the buildings in our country, and at the same time, we have zero construction sectors. That's going to be kind of the overall idea and goal for what we are going to be doing here. So, back to Austria. We know that the basis of us being able to generate buildings is going to be having subjects as well as getting foreign investment, and to that end, the most important kind of thing that we are going to have available to us is going to be our power block. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this power block because we want to instead be a sovereign empire, which I think following Pivot of Empire is going to kind of unambiguously probably be, I mean, we have to play a little bit more with it. We're relatively fresh on this patch, but I think that this is going to be unambiguously the strongest after kind of the dust settles and we've experimented a little bit because of the new interaction that is available. We are going to be put in vassalization here, and I think it's important to note that we are going to be vassal swarming really, really hard in this run because whenever we have a subject, and that subject is small, and they have 10 construction, that's effectively free construction for us. We are just going to be using base construction ourselves, and so if we have a bunch of vassals and they get base construction, that is effectively a step up relative to us controlling this territory, and this is going to play really well with the vassalization principle. We are going to have basically unlimited authority. We're probably going to end up using all the edicts at some point in time because we're also going to reduce the number of states. There's also a chance that we eventually swap to exploitation of members so that we can get percent authority and percent influence, but we'll see. Now, for this, Sovereign Empire is very importantly going to give us a character interaction or a subject interaction, can subjugate power block member. So if we invite someone to be a power block member, we can then subjugate them, and the subjugation cost is going to be a very significant investment in cohesion. And so it's going to be important that we generate a lot of cohesion. But to that end, Austria is actually good. See, there's not a lot of percent modifiers for prestige, although to be fair, this is not something we pay that close attention to, but very importantly, a huge portion of our generation of cohesion comes from our total share of prestige of the block. Since we are going to have very few buildings ourselves, it's going to be really hard for us to be the leader in market and this type of stuff, so we are going to have a little bit of a difficult time in the prestige department. But coming back to, of course, our landowner, this is actually going to be, the Wiener Walzer is actually going to end up being useful for us for the purposes of generating prestige so that we can keep up the cohesion, because every time we use the subjugate interaction, it's going to cost us an enormous chunk of cohesion. And so it's going to be really, really valuable if our equilibrium is 100, and we can just tick up to 100, and then I believe it's minus 50 or 60 every time we form a subject. Now, let's take a closer look at Request Power Block Embassy, and this is the incredibly strong interaction, which is going to make Sovereign Empire a lot better. What it is going to be giving us, it is going to be giving us 400 leverage generation, it's going to be giving us +1 ticking relations every 200 days, and this is the very key and important part, it's going to cost 0 diplomacy. So we are going to be able to use this in order to improve relations with a ton of tiny powers as best as we can, get mutual investment agreements, which effectively gives us 10 construction if done with a small enough power, which is very strong. And the main limiting factor previously of Sovereign Empire, you know, being able to subjugate other people other than the discrimination, which, to be fair, we're going to be navigating that, you know, kind of street ourselves with the new Pivot of Empire discrimination mechanic. But one of the main reasons why it was so difficult to actually subjugate people was because it was very difficult to generate enough leverage to pull people into your power block. Sovereign Empire is the hardest group to pull people into your power block. However, plus 400 is insane. Just kind of as a frame of reference, Guarantee Independence only gives plus 200 and will cost us, you know, anywhere from 50 to 150 Diplo points. We're getting plus 400 for freezies, good dealsies, and so what we are going to be doing is we are going to be making a ton of Diplo moves to improve relations with these guys to the extent that they will accept this agreement, and then we will go and have our Diplo fly somewhere else and do some other things. So you see that Luca is willing to accept. I believe we have already a defensive guarantee independence on them? No, we don't. Okay, so this is shout out to Luca. These guys will keep this guarantee independence on, which we start on for the start of the game. But as soon as they are willing to let us have an embassy, we will take this away. And so what we are going to do is we're going to generate these agreements with as many people as possible and look to move from there as far as the diplomacy goes. There are also 2 new laws in Pivot of Empire that we are hoping to make use of in this run. The first of which is corporate state, which allows us to pass cooperative ownership, and we are hoping to enforce this on our subjects. I also think that this is probably the best governance principle. We have to test it. We haven't played around with it enough to really know, but it is giving you authority. It is giving petite bourgeoisie political strength. The petite bourgeoisie being big, or might be a downside or an upside. We're not entirely sure how this is going to play out with political movements. Our sample size is too small, but like relative to Council Republic, you are getting more legitimacy overall, and then you are going to be, or you're getting less of a legitimacy hit from ideological incompatibility and more government size allowance, which I think will end up being more legitimacy overall, and you are getting plus 100 authority versus no authority. So we're hoping to make use of that. And then I think we're going to make use of the very, very strange play of going extraction economy. The reason being is we don't care that much about our investment pool, or we won't. I can't fathom that we will ever be able to drain it at any point ever. So getting this malice is really not that big a deal, but getting this throughput on agriculture, extraction, and plantations is going to be a big deal, because this will allow us to further encourage other people to invest in our country, because all of these industries will be more profitable, which is going to be very, very strange, because we are reverse exploiting the entire world, forcing them to dump money into our economy, forcing them to exploit us so that we could later exploit them. I think it's worth mentioning. This is something we need to test out more, but I do think it's worth it to probably open with bolstering a political movement. This seems particularly strong. We saw that these movements do seem to really inform leader ideology and shake things up quite a bit over the course of the game, as well as give ability to enact laws. And so I think that suppressing and bolstering these is particularly strong. We just don't see a group that we specifically like that much for Austria right here. We don't really want to bolster the absolutist movement, I don't think. I mean, maybe we do if we really want to stay monarchy, and I think there's a chance that we do, given kind of our Austrian aristocracy. If we keep these guys above 20% clout, I think we might do this for the entirety of the run, which is a bit of strangeness, and so coming to grips with that. In theory, we could go for this to allow us to get better dual citizenship, but I do think we eventually release Hungary, and so I don't think that this is going to be too important an issue for us, although to pull people into our bloc, it is affected by discrimination, and so to that end, maybe we do even want to bolster these guys. So let's take a peel off, and we will try and keep an eye on this movement as well as long as things are going on, because this is a new mechanic, and we do want to play into it a little bit. I think this movement's gonna get weaker once we release Hungary, but to be fair, we could wait until passing, a law such as cultural exclusion before releasing Hungary. We get an agitator arriving here, and while having intelligentsia agitators is attractive, he's actually supporting the peasant movement specifically, which is not a movement we're a fan of. I think we actually do want to stay on tenant farmers, perhaps the entire game, for the Austrian aristocracy political strength, and we don't really care if people can't migrate anyways, and so what we're going to do is we are just going to exile this guy. We're going to use the cooldown. We're not going to kind of, imprison agitator. That's a new interaction that we haven't seen yet. Off to jail, off to the gulag. Well, let's just see what this does. A 3-year sentence. He gets jailed agitator, extra political movement activism. He gets extra activism. This seems bad. He gets extra activism. He'll have his charges dropped. Wait, what the hell? What the hell is this? Alright, let's give him a 3-year sentence, though. And so now he supports nobody, but he gives more activism. That's an interesting interaction. We haven't seen that yet. I'm not entirely sure if that's good, because that seems like the peasants, it's going to help them out. And you know what? We're not even focused on a law yet. Let's just suppress these guys as well, and maybe not float the authority here at the start. we're actually going to pass National Guard here. There has been a little bit of a shakeup in internal security, namely guaranteed liberties is now only affecting radicals and loyalists from political movements, not from SOL changes. It's also affecting revolution and secession speed, but guaranteed libs might not be as good as National Guard anymore for a couple reasons. One, drought, flood, wildfire, and extreme winds. Some of these are cataclysmically bad, and being able to decrease their impact, this is a big game. If we get this up to level 3, this will be a minus 15%, and also we are not going to go very high ranking on a lot of these institutions. We're probably just going to have level 1 in a lot of them, because it takes a lot of construction to build the bureaucracy. But on top of that, the conscription rate will make us look scarier in military situations while allowing us to stay on professional army. I mean, it's possible we're actually supposed to swap onto national militia. That way we can look as scary as possible while not needing to invest a lot in military, but I would hate to delete a bunch of army that we already have when our construction is so dear, because we only have 10 of it, and so we wouldn't be able to rebuild the barracks. So this seems like a nice little compromise, and on top of that, it is going to positively affect the attitude of these guys, giving us this prestige bonus, which is going to help us to claw up in the rankings. We did drop as a consequence of, reasons, because we suddenly lost a whole bunch of territory. I can't imagine how. So we get a very nice open here. We side with the UK in exchange for, we couldn't get Beijing, but we could get this, which has been renamed to North Jilin, which is a state where a ton of gold will appear, and we really care about that a lot because we don't have to construct the gold fields in order to benefit from them. And also, as we talked about earlier, depressed prices will make stuff less profitable to build, but the good old thing about gold is that gold never decreases in price, and so people will always want to build gold in your territory, and so this will be pretty nice for us here. We also, while we have done that, managed to get in here in Zululand, and then we have declared on Transvaal. The reason we've declared on Transvaal is, of course, that since we are on the same side of play as the UK can't defend Transvaal here at the start of the game, and they also have gold. And Portugal has decided to get a little bit aggressive with Gaza here, and we have sided with Gaza in exchange for Western Guangdong, which is going to give us a really profitable trade opportunities once we take that treaty port. So all in all, a very, very nice open. Basically, the cleanest we kind of could have hoped for here, other than maybe being able to get Beijing. And, maybe if we didn't release these guys, we could have sided in for Beijing, truth be told. But I think that this is fine as well. And also, we would not be able to make full and complete use of, well, we would have been able to make use of Beijing. To be fair, we can just declare war on Qing in 5 years for war reps in Beijing, and that will solve that problem as well. Alright, so we get our company slot, but as you can see here, we can't slot in the company. See, the way it works now is you need available building levels to transfer to the company, which means you're going to need nationally owned buildings in order to do this. We are going to, in order to facilitate this, especially because we want this company appearing in the capital, we are going to nationalize 5 levels of the furniture manufacturers, and now we will be able to establish the furniture manufacturer or the tooling company. Notably, we are giving up a lot of potentially good companies by giving away Bohemia. We're going to be giving up Central Hungary sometime soon. I think that overall this is okay, but we are going to push here for furniture, which I think furniture and glassworks are going to play really nicely because we are not going to get really expensive construction goods because the AI won't push up construction, except for a strategy that is a little bit obscure, but every AI is going to have attitudes and these types of things. If you could see here, if we look at information, they are going to have behavior, agricultural investments, conservative agenda, maintain autonomy, etc. They are going to have these things. Sometimes they will hit something like industrialize, which actually causes them to build up a ton of construction sectors very, very, very aggressively. I'm not sure all the things that encourage this to happen, but I do believe having industrialists in government helps this out, helps this to spawn, in which case the AI kind of pops off. To that end, we're probably going to try and move as many of our subjects onto wealth voting as possible in order to facilitate this maybe coming up, because if they start to build a lot of construction sectors, boy oh boy, will that be nice for us. We get the London conference. Not entirely sure what the best course of action is here. I think we're going to favor Dutch claims because Dutch will have more constituent subjects that are introduced to our market if we go for them and eventually subjugate them. Also, just wanted to note, normally we're kind of tracking two things when we evaluate how well we're doing. Construction, which obviously we can't track now, and GDP, which if we are owning a bunch of buildings abroad, this actually won't go up. And so the metric that we're kind of going to be using, we're going to be using two metrics to really track progress in this run. The first is going to be, and we wanted to pull up the market UI, but it wasn't functioning with us, the overall economic strength of our block or market. In this case, we could see we have 18.9 million, and it is including the GDP of all of our subjects as well, and we are expecting them to do quite a bit better than our subjects do in most games. And the second thing that we could kind of track is we are going to try and keep track of how many financial districts we have, how successful we have been in pulling the ownership kind of the rest of the world. So we can see we're at 18 million now in terms of our total GDP of our power block, and we are also at 41 financial districts. If we do the financial districts plus the company headquarters, this is going to add up to 41, and that's kind of our current starting point. When we release Hungary eventually, these financial districts will lose quite a bit to Hungary, so that'll be kind of the way things go. But currently we're not releasing Hungary because we want to maintain our level of cohesion, which is going to help to pull people in the block, and I don't think we could do that with Hungary released, at least not until we build quite a few more boats for ourselves in order to boost prestige or find other methods of boosting our prestige here. So we passed the 2-year mark by, a little bit extra, and so it's time to come back into the taxes and change things up a little bit. We are going to stimulate the economy here by reducing taxes quite a bit, which will increase SOL, which will it'll increase wealth, which will increase the size of the buy baskets, which will increase demand for consumer goods, which will allow these to be more profitable. Although we do not yet have any sort of investment agreement with anyone, so it's not going to quite be too useful at this point in time, but we are really overflowing on the currency, and we don't want to be doing that. I think that we will also pay high on the military as well, which will give us more army power projection. Maybe we'll go even Steven here, and we will get to juice up the Intelligentsia and the petite bourgeoisie, as well as the laborers, by paying them higher wages, much higher than normal. Notably, there's not a lot of government wages because, hey, we don't have a lot of construction sectors, but this is going to, kind of help to stimulate the economy. In particular, we are exporting now on furniture and also on glassworks, and so we want to try and keep these going and being as profitable as possible. So we are going to do that to that end. We might even want to import wood. God, it feels so weird. But it could be the case that we want to import wood. Things are gonna change a lot once we eventually get some sort of agreement in place for mutual investments. But we're not really at that point. We're currently at the opening salvo, where we are trying to generate a lot of mandate. That way we can get external trade too. That way we can really start turning up the Diplo kind of machine here. So it's going to be another 3 to 4 years. But we are generating mandate at a good clip, and we're going to look for another person to subjugate. Also very interesting, Central America didn't implode, which is not something we see too often, so maybe we subjugate them. Just would hate for them to go for the subjugation and then have them break up. But this would give us a very powerful adjacency with Mexico. Also, Texas managed to survive, which is kind of another interesting opener here in regards to this region. We're keeping an eye on things. I think we are going to want to eventually do something with Texas, but if we go for them right now, if we go for a protectorate, the USA sides against them, and we don't want to be in kind of, or they don't. They have a truce with Texas. Oh no, wait, they don't protect Texas. Well then, we might have to go for Texas. Before, it was looking like they would side against us, but Texas would be a nice boon, and it is super cheap right now. It could even be a state that we would want to annex eventually, but I kind of don't think so. But that would give us an adjacency with both the USA and Mexico, which would allow us to run more trade with them. It would also give us a native interest in the Dixie region, which is normally a pretty hard one to pick up. We got a little bit of a heat wave that is negatively affecting Argentina here, which is in our market, which is actually causing a little bit of food insecurity. It'll be pretty interesting to see how this shakes out. We have started to import some of the stuff a little bit more aggressively and put import prioritization, but it's not affecting Austrian pops, so how much should we really care? We get the first entrant to our power block here in Modena, which is going to be quite nice for us. They are very small, but they are in our power block, and the first thing that we want to kind of take a look at anytime we get that is, would they accept an investment agreement? It looks like they are close. All we need is a little bit of Diplo, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually drop the Diplo here, especially because we already have a trade agreement with Two Sicilies, and we're going to come in here to Modena, which we know is probably running out of pop or out of infrastructure. Oh, wait, okay, that's... Nope, they have kind of a bit of both, but in either case, we are going to look to get an investment agreement with them because they are small, they are likely to accept it, and this will also improve our relations with them, and so we will go for this investment agreement. Why can we not say yes? They haven't researched stock exchange. The truth hurts. So we have a nice little harvest condition. This one's happy, everyone's happy. The goods consumption, still have to figure out exactly how that works, whether or not that's kind of effectively a free money modifier or just an SOL booster, but this is great. Here's the cataclysm, here's the catastrophic one, and it's affecting a huge portion of our economy. The epicenter is in Styria, so it's going to be the worst there, and the areas around it are not going to be quite as bad. Minus 23% MAPI, plus goods consumption for peasants, minus 23% infrastructure. If we had actually built anything, that minus infrastructure would be really, really devastating on top of the minus MAPI. And so if we take a look at the different map mode here, where we can look at market access, it looks like we still have full access to the market here. But in particular, if we look at local prices and we look at, you know, this, look at that MAPI. So this is going to be very, very significant, very disruptive in kind of just like the straight up heartland of Austria. Very uncomfortable this is. And I think that, you know, it's possible that you can get like, if you get one of these really early on, it's possible you just like the run's bricked. And if we take a look at this, this is going to go on for another year and a half. So this is going to really slow us down. Not that we were moving very fast anyways. GDP is relatively stagnant because we haven't built a single building. We are getting kind of the Diplo conditions that we need set up. We need to generate mandate faster. We need to work on this type of thing. Pull people into our block. I think that it's possible. I think that in retrospect, we should have just opened with central banking. That way we could bankroll, because bankroll is probably the fastest way to pull people in the block and stuff like this. But we're still making the moves that we can. I think that investment agreement. Para these guys, this is fantastic for us because our investment, our capitalists aren't going to do shit. Our capitalists aren't going to build overseas anywhere. There's no escape of capital from our country, and so we don't have to worry about that agreement at all. But I was just thinking how great it would be to pull them out from the block. Just kind of taking a look here. No dice over there, and taking another look. This is going to be a lot of what we're doing is we're looking for these types of things. The only person willing to accept here was Bavaria, but they do accept, and now, the waiting begins, the watching begins, because if they build in our country, that's how you double construction, baby. So we have ourselves a little bit of a kind of mini world war here over the Ottoman Egypt question. The war popped, and what we did is we asked to side in for transfer Serbia, and then on the same tick we declared our own play for liberate Bulgaria, and we are looking to kind of Balkanize the Balkans, as it were, because with tiny little subjects we can form these investment agreements which will be able to give us more construction, effectively speaking. This is kind of what we're working towards here, and for now we're really happy that we haven't released Hungary yet, because a big portion of our overall military is kind of contained in Hungary, and while on these offensive wars, the war we declared, we will be able to bring our subjects to bear at least a little bit. With the other wars, not so much, because if we are siding with someone in a play, we can't bring our troops here. Fortunately, this is just Egypt versus the Ottomans, but on this other war, we do see the UK sides against us just after the Russians joined, so maybe us swaying in the Russians was a bit of a mistake. And to be fair, it looks like we could maybe go for... No, we don't have enough maneuvers to invite anyone else. I very much doubt that this will... Well, we could guarantee independence of someone with whom we already kind of don't mind guaranteeing independence. So I guess we'll do that, and we'll get 2 Sicilies in here as well, because we would love to get them as a subject at some point down the line. And this, or the guarantee, was that 2 Sicilies? Or was it someone else? It was one of the Italians. Either way, it'll be easier to pull them into the block, which will be nice for us. Also, current status on the block, we did pull a couple Italians in, so that is going to feel pretty nice. What they wanted from us was the treaty port, that is Great Britain. Really kind of pleased with ourselves here that we decided to park a 20 stack of infantry here before the war began. Kind of upset with ourselves that we didn't grab Kenya in the war goals. That was kind of a pretty big miss. We should have just nabbed that. Although, to be honest, I don't know how useful that'll be. What we have done also that we kind of haven't been playing around with normally is we've gone for colonial exploitation, because I think it'll be easier to get foreign investment on the exploitation than it will on the resettlement. And again, we need foreign investment. We've been trying to keep an eye on the foreign queue. Haven't seen any Bavarian thing get constructed yet, but to be fair, Bavaria has a lot of pups and a lot of infrastructure, some very good states, and so aren't necessarily expecting to see Bavaria investing straight away. But notably, if they build something with the private queue, we can nab it up and purchase it with our massive investment pool that is just growing and growing and growing and growing like a cancer that can't be spent and cannot stimulate the economy. Alright, well, we recruit the Halloween Dracula character, and so knowing that he gets an event to swap him to Market Liberal, we're just going to grant him leadership. Although I'm not even sure Market Liberal is good for us, because yeah, I don't even know if it's good for us, because I think that we want to kind of stay on interventionism. I suppose that Market Liberal will slightly support it and probably be overall a better kind of one, and also we get to play with the meme character, so shout out to the memes. These wars are super sloggy, but it doesn't matter because we have unlimited money, because we're not spending any money, because we don't believe in that. We don't believe in playing the game properly, where you actually build and do the one thing that you can do in the game. And as a consequence, man, oh man, do we really value the 10 construction we get. In theory, we should orchestrate a way to get an engineer on the throne, which would give us an additional 5 base construction, which would be absolutely tremendous. Why we are building wine, you might ask. Are we out of our minds? No, we're into our wines. What we are doing is we are going to make a play for this company. I don't know if we'll be able to get the productivity bonus, but you may have noticed something. That is a big difference relative to 1.7. There's a much bigger bonus both on the throughput and the company construction bonus, and so to that end, we might be able to jeez. The problem is a foreign investment will build wine, which will drive down the efficiency of wine, and our owners don't really have a good way of buying up wine unless we nationalize and resell it, which might have to be what we end up doing. But the entire reason we're playing for this is because we want that prestige bonus. Which, I mean, because we're not going to get a whole bunch of buildings under these guys anyways, because we're not constructing, I don't think, and to the extent that we could get a prestige bonus, we would love to. The reason we're not going for Mavag is because we would just lose that company. I think that's how that would work, because it's inside of Hungary. Otherwise, Mavag would be excellent. Here we go. We do get the Dracula event. We could either go authoritarian or market liberal. We'll go market liberal, which is going to be good for us. And he will permanently be in charge, and we will have a market liberal boyo for forever and ever. I think that because of that, we'll go free trade here, which ought to help us out with the trade. We are still recovering from the war with the UK, and man, oh man, are we in a lot of pain when it comes to cohesion. Looks like our cohesion's coming back up, but this lack of cohesion is making it difficult for us to get this request power block embassy, because it is on the basis of cohesion, as well as, of course, we won't be able to invite anyone in any sort of reasonable capacity or generate leverage without cohesion. So really trying to get this up. This is going to be a prestige game, and normally we would just, you know, slap down a few hundred boats, but these boats have been in our queue since the start of the game. We only have 10 construction. We also have to deal with bureaucracy. I'm thinking of closing the borders here because, or actually, if we just release Hungary, this will solve the bureaucracy problem. We'll still have other sorts of problems, namely that they will have a really high share of the prestige of our power block, just by, you know, even though they're landlocked, it's difficult for us to try and generate prestige here, so it is a little bit of a struggle. Hopefully, these vineyards and the company can actually get something done. That would be fantastic. It looks like they are offering us an obligation. I think we're going to say decline and just look to keep our influence a little bit more flexible. We're trying to improve relations with some of our subjects right now, especially the Serbia, which we picked up in order to help improve our cohesion and start to bring it up to a nicer level, which in turn will give us external trade. And once we get external trade, hopefully we can get things going. One of the problems with external trade, which it's the main benefit of external trade too, is that it's going to give you this influential trade center, which gives +2 influence per level. One of the problems here is we can't really trade at super high levels that well because we can't add convoys, and we also don't really have prices that are manipulated by us having actual economic activity because of all this. So, youch. So we get a little bit of a declaration for German leadership here. We should be able to battle this quite easily. What we're going to do is we're going to break up Prussia, look to balkanize them as much as possible so that we have more opportunities to steal construction. Although it is going to be getting progressively harder and harder to fight GPs, because if we take a look at their GDP line, or our GDP line, rather, it's basically completely flat. Nothing is going up. We are not really gaining more power. We're gaining more power in some sense as it comes to we are getting additional diplopacts, but we're also going to be sending diplopacts out. We're having more subjects. This is kind of the idea, war reps, these types of things. And we're building more military somewhat in our queue, but with only 10 construction at a time, it is slow going. And if we look at the development, economically speaking, of other GPs, okay, they're not doing stellar, but their trajectory is better than us. In fact, it's almost like an inverse of kind of a normal looking game where the AI has basically terrible development and you're progressing faster than them. We're now in kind of the worst seat. There is something also that we have a little bit of concern about, which is that if we look at the building registry, we have not acquired any Bavarian buildings, and all the buildings that we have in our subjects, I believe, are the ones that we just have because we released them. We don't have any buildings in any subjects other than what we released, and what I think is going on is I think you actually need the first singular construction sector in order to allow your investment pool to do anything, including the purchasing of buildings. I think it just straight up does not activate in any sort of way until you build the first construction sector, or this is kind of my thinking, and the reason why we thought this is a while back we nationalized these glassworks, and then we put them up for privatization with the idea being we would really like our, Austrian home goods combine to be buying these and making a ton of money. However, these have just sat unpurchased for quite some time now. Bavaria is not even purchasing them, and it seems strange to me, and so I think that we've been talking about having zero construction. I think just to activate the private construction queue, we're going to need to build one construction sector. Now, the downside of this singular construction sector is, because we have a 50% private allocation, this means we're going to lose control of 50% of the construction we have, so we're going to go from having 10 construction that we can control to 7.5 construction. So in terms of our own agency, this is going to decrease our agency, but hopefully kind of unlock our ability to buy buildings in terms of the investment pool. Now, investment pool reinvestment, this is a key important part, is proportional. And what that means is we see that, roughly speaking, these are going to add up to 18K-ish. And so this means roughly 11, 12, 13% of the amount of money is going to the company headquarters. To be fair, I'm going to talk to the devs at some point because I'm not sure I like the company implementation. But as it stands now, 12% of the time, our company will get the opportunity to either buy or build a building when the die is rolled for reinvestment. So what this means is we would actually prefer the company to be maximally the biggest proportion possible. Now, in terms of these, the reinvestment, because this gives them the best role, and so I think what we're going to do is we're going to nationalize basically every building that we possibly can in order to give our company the best chance possible, or our two companies the best chance possible of purchasing as many of buildings as possible. And this is kind of this is lighting money on fire, but we have money to burn, and so what we are going to do is we are going to come into the building registry and we are going to look for everything that is located in Austria and is owned by not nationally owned, that are going to be owned by Austrian pops, and we are going to come in and we are going to nationalize anything that is owned by either a manor house or a financial district. So we are going to come in, and so a lot of these are just owned locally. Yeah, you do need the first, I really think you need the first construction sector in order to get anything to privatize. So we're going to go through everything, and if it's owned by a financial district, it's getting nationalized, and so we'll be back after that. Okay, thankfully, we do get a bit of new UI stuff helpful with the patch, which is we can nationalize filtered buildings, so this is actually going to be not as tedious as we thought, because we can just select all the manor houses and nationalize everything. This is going to be disgustingly expensive. A lot of money will go to the investment pool. We're going to nationalize filtered buildings, and we're going to filter by financial districts as well. So we are losing all of our financial districts. Remember, we're kind of thinking this as a metric of progress for us, and we're going to lose all these, but that's okay. And now we're losing money quite handedly. But if we look at our investment pool and we look at the reinvestment, the manor houses and the manor houses should basically go away. Okay, the company headquarters is now these manor houses remaining. These are peasants only, and the company headquarters is now a higher proportion of reinvestment. And so when we finish this construction sector, once this finishes up, we are hoping that we can get a lot of stuff done. This also is going to absolutely nuke our industrialist clout, which is a little bit unfortunate, except for we don't care about job creators because we're we have 17 million saved up, my guys. How much investment pool do we want to just sit there and do nothing? It's a free money modifier, but only if you spend the money. And so these guys becoming weak is not too big a deal. This will probably proportionally also allow us, if we keep doing this over and over, allow us to keep the aristocracy strong and tamp down on the industrialists, where the only ones that we are going to allow to kind of come up is going to be these companies here. Really excited for when that kicks up. Not excited for this war. We're going to set everyone on defense. It looks like Bavaria is going to get pushed through. Really hate when this front happens because they get pushed through, and then we will acquire a new front that will be cripplingly bad, and so we'll just have to try and micro that properly. So this war got a whole lot more scary because at the last minute, when we put all the war goals in, Russia sides against us, which is going to be a bit of a vibe. We have liberate Rhineland, liberate Pomerania on Prussia here, and then after Russia sided, we went for liberate Poland and war reparations on each of these. We would have preferred to liberate Ukraine, but we couldn't get it'd be impossible for us to get an interest down in time, so we'll settle for Poland, which is going to give us a nice kind of blockier look anyways, if we could eventually pull them into our customs union / sovereign empire type of thing. Here we are going to change up our research a little bit because we are in such bad shape. We're going to finish off general staff before coming back to central banking. It's not like we really want to bankroll anyone during this time anyways, and then we're going to go canneries into mech tools into mechanized workshops, because I think that we have a bit of an advantage in the tooling workshops, and I think that, again, we want to kind of focus on consumer goods, and we don't really need the railroads because we don't have a functioning economy and we're not building anything. Alright, so we needed to add in another 2 edicts. Normally when we have a play that goes kind of sideways, we add more military at the start of the play, but this is not something we can do with only 15 construction, so that's definitely going to be a bit of an adjustment. We are also being a little bit stingy with the PMs, but now we're scraping literally everything we can do. I mean, we are holding back some small measure of authority that we could be putting in on edicts, I suppose. Here, let's kick that back down. But for the most part, this is the best we can do, and this is very, very close, but I think we're turning it around here. I think we're starting to win enough of these battles that we are going to start pushing them back here. They do have to occupy our territory in order to enforce. Ooh, this is ours. That's unfortunate. But we probably should have just avoided putting war goals in on Russia, so Russia could naturally decay out. And so maybe this was a little bit of a mistake, but it's looking like we're getting a little bit of a push out. I just don't know how we get any sort of resolution here that is positive for us unless we can outspend them for longer. But I don't know if that's the case either, because we went from having a ton of money to our little maneuver where we privatized, where we nationalized everything, almost certainly kind of blowing up in our face. In fact, why don't we put a couple more things up? Ooh, we also got PMs. But why don't we put a couple of these things up for privatization with the hopes that maybe we can get some funds back from the investment pool, so that they, because when they buy, it'll go back in the treasury, because these are all nationally owned, and so maybe this will give us some degree of reprieve. We also want those to be moved over to the companies, so that'll be nice. But I mean, we're recovering here. Just the question is can we hold on long enough? We're gaining some advantage as well by them getting enforced out with all these little inky-dinky miners that are providing a small amount of troops, still on all defense. It's just our subjects who are looking to push. So, for example, Bohemia just is about it. They said, let's not talk about it, let's be about it. And to be fair, they are pushing in, so it's looking like maybe we turn this around here. Except not with that landing. That landing got bricked. So we finally get an agitator here, which is interesting for us because he supports the liberal movement. We have not had the liberal movement before, and now we have the very marginal liberal movement, which we're hoping gains power over time, which supports a whole bunch of stuff that we like. I mean, some stuff we're kind of okay with, but it is going to allow us to pass a bunch of good laws, and so this is going to be interesting. This new system, more and more, is growing on me, and what it's doing right now, or what it has been with just the absolutist movement and the Catholic traditionalist movement in play, we've pretty much not gotten any sorts of opportunities to roll generals that have any ideologies we in particular like. If we click on one of these guys, we can see the odds of the appearance, and you can see none of these are particularly good. It's not like we have an abolitionist, although maybe they're not the best example. Let's maybe look at the Intelligentsia. You can see that they basically only have chance for moderates, and if we look at someone like the petite bourgeoisie, we can't roll anything like a radical as a result of our political movements. So the political movements are very important, and to that end, us getting an agitator is now kind of spawned this new political movement, which is maybe going to allow us to move in a new direction. And so this is going to be fun to play around with. Now, on the war front, we have been getting absolutely dumped on. We have just been like trying to slog out, trying to finish this war. We were admittedly not microing very well in the landings. We were trying to go back and forth and here, rather than coming in through Konya or Kola. Now we've kind of rectified that. I don't know if it's a little bit of too little too late. This war looks pretty grim. We had to demobilize troops because we were just absolutely like running out of money, and then we started to lose on the fronts, and so we remobilized the troops. It definitely feels extremely painful to try and fight two of these guys with zero economic development and a complete inability to actually add any sort of military over the course of the war. You know, if the war was close and we would have the ability to add military, we would just be adding a ton more military, but we're significantly hemmed in by this sort of situation. Now, I'm not sure why exactly it is that our investment pool is cut off here, because I wanted to show off that it is slowly draining, but for whatever reason, it's now going from September 47, is perhaps because we loaded a save. We still have, you know, all of our GDP up in here. or our GDP graph in its entirety, and it is starting to come up, so we are getting some usefulness out of the foreign queue here with Bavaria. The strategy is starting to pay off a little in terms of what's coming up, and if we take a look at our power block, admittedly our power block is, we've just been so focused on the war, we haven't been focused enough on this. Why don't we go vassalization too? We could go for market stuff, but I think that what we want is, in particular, higher equilibrium for our cohesion, which will allow us to do a lot more moves that are really important, because cohesion is what allows us to get that super OP interaction, which is going to give us positive benefit. But kind of coming back into here, we can see that our overall economic size, I think it was like 380. Oh, that's not the one we wanted to look for. We wanted to look at all blocks. Wolf, pull up all blocks. So I think we started with something to the tune of 18 million GDP in our block, and as we can see here, we now have 26 million GDP. I think we start off with 18 million overall, and if we add the GDPs kind of our main countries, we're about at that. So a majority of our growth has been through expansion in terms of our block, so we're really not getting any sort of payoff yet for our strategy. But to be fair, we are just now kind of coming into what it is that we're trying to be doing. Now, we aren't getting very many trade route size, so this is going to really negatively affect what we can get done with external trade. But the idea here is that once we have external trade, we will be able to make a lot more diplo moves in order to get any sort of thing done. Really hoping that we are able to push through here quite quickly. We do have a guy with rapid advance on several units. We have this designated as the strategic objective, and if we force Russia out, or even just force a disproportionate amount of guys to come in, we are going to be able to easily beat Prussia on their own. We're just going to let them push us back out and re-land. The idea is we're just going to keep rolling until we eventually get, instead of an advancement over here or over here, get an advancement into Ingria. So this is a very tedious process to try and win this, because it doesn't look like we can win just by grinding up the front, although them pulling off 142 troops, this maybe is enough for us to get it done. Russia has been enforced out. Poland is released, which is going to be fantastic for us. We will eventually try and pull them into our block. Of course, they do not have relations with themselves yet, as one often does when they are initially released. But this should just be an easy peasy, lemon squeezy type of thing. We're even going to get a landing in on this backside. This is a separate strategic region from where the 3 stack is present. But if they're going to defend the Poland HQ with 12 units against our 10, I think that's fine enough with us. We're just pushing in quickly here, and so it should be over all soon. Why don't we designate this as the strategic objective, or actually we're going to need the capital in order to release a bunch of stuff, because German leadership, just that is enough. Now, we might have to re-release all of our countries, unfortunately, as a result of just how this shakes out, because I'm not sure if it automatically forms the South German Federation, but we will be winning leadership here, and so I think that it'll form the South German Federation, and we will just have to release everyone. I think that this will also give us ownership of more buildings, so this is going to be kind of a positive thing for us, but we are pushing in here now right quick, and the enforcement is just coming in. Do we get in there? Nope, we don't, but this will all be over quite soon. So I don't know if I've ever seen a tick this fast. They are ticking 21 a week, minus 21, with 18 of this being from the casualties of over 600,000. This has just been an absolute slog of a war. I don't know if it's going to include the dead and wounded. Yeah, it doesn't include the dead and wounded of the Russians, but we have, in terms of combined total casualties, lost 2 million guys, and the cost of the war for us has been 16 million. This has been an absolute slogfest. This is part of why we didn't notice that we had gotten kind of the block thing that we wanted, but here we are about to enforce just in 2 weeks, because they are ticking minus 20 a tick. That is insane. I don't think I've seen an amount that long or that big before, but here we are about to get it, and we get German lead. All right, so the nation is healing. We have pulled Bavaria into our bloc, which is going to be nice. And we got mutual investment agreement here with France. We can exchange an obligation for a mutual investment agreement, and it's going to be interesting to watch and see how this goes. I expect that we are not going to end up spending too much of our own investment pool in France, but if we do, that's really okay, because we have, again, a pretty fat investment pool. Like, if we buy up the buildings that they're constructing, that's much better than, our investment pool going to waste, and France is going to have a significant amount of construction. Also, since we have built that single construction sector, we've seen an enormous amount of these kind of come on up. Now, I think a lot of these are just levels that have been purchased, but some of these have to have been constructed, like the vineyards in northern Transylvania and northern Serbia. This has been part of our construction our private queue. This is the absolute kind of minimum amount of construction sectors we could possibly run, but these buildings are coming along quite nicely, and this is going to be pretty important or pretty useful to us because the throughput bonus on these is 50%, the construction bonus is 75%. Companies are much stronger now, but they invite weird sorts of play patterns. I'm not sure I like the implementation. I think I mentioned earlier that I was going to talk to Paradox about this or mention it, but for our purposes of our zero construction run, they're actually pretty great, because the amount of construction that we do have, like this little piddling 15, is going to be much more efficient under these guys, and also they are going to be using a small portion of the investment pool, because we're not getting a bunch of investment pool. We can see here that our total investment pool contribution from privately owned buildings is this 7K plus this 4K plus the 2K of the company headquarters, and so proportionally speaking, the company owns, what is this, maybe like 14% or something like that. Math is hard, but this means that they are going to gain opportunities to buy on these 14%. And we can see here, Glassworks in Transdanubia is expanding with a 76% construction efficiency, because we have the company construction bonus, and we are expanding currently in Transdanubia here. So this is going to be useful. We'll try and export some of this stuff so that these can get more prosperous, both the fruit and the outputs of these, because we really do want to hit our productivity bonus, but I think that it's going to be hard for us to hit that because we can't really stimmy the economy that well. To the end of stimmying the economy, we've dropped back the taxes and we have high wages again. We want to run a positive balance to slowly get rid of our credit, but we're not it's not super necessary that we get rid of it as quickly as possible, because I don't think we have to worry too much about a war that is very scary. At this point, having both a truce with our two great powers who neighbor us in terms of the land, and we should be able to defend by sea. So one of the problems we're experiencing relative to like a normal run where you don't just insanely build only a single construction sector is that external trade isn't really popping off the way that we had hoped. The main idea here is that we want the influential trade center. Per level of trade route, we get +2 influence, but we can't really push as many trade route levels as we would otherwise like. If we come into here, we can see where we're getting our sources from. We're getting 1100 from being a great power and from base value, and the rest of this, these are coming from the influential trade centers, or other than the rivalry. So maybe it's 300 we're getting from the influential trade centers, most of them in Venetian, but this is really not as much as we had hoped for, kind of hoping for a much bigger number that would allow us to make more moves to try and pull people into our block, and also give us more opportunities for getting a foreign investment or an investment agreement somewhere, so that we can effectively leverage other people's construction. And so it's definitely a bit of a struggle, because the trade routes are not as big as we would like. If we sort by route size, we are getting some decent sized routes with China, and to be fair, we are running negative convoys right now, but even not running negative convoys, normally you can do a lot more routes with a lot more size, because you're building a lot more goods, and the prices in your economy tend to be more polarized in that you are pushing down the prices of a lot of manufactured goods that you want to export, stuff like tools, and then this is in turn as an effect by you having an economy that is disproportionately more tools and iron, and you're exporting these, then what you can do is you can this increases the price of these goods so that you can run bigger routes for kind of more of the agricultural goods. And we're not getting that opportunity partially because we are having a depressing effect on the economy because the investment pool is still growing. It's changing 24K, even with the potential to buy some buildings. The investment pool is still growing. And so because of this, there's like this rippling cascading effect where we're running fewer and fewer or less and less trade route size. And so this is going to be a negative impact. But coming over to the buildings, if we look at the registry, we can see that since we made the change, the adjustment of, building the singular construction sector, stuff is getting purchased. Stuff is getting purchased steadily. We can see here, for example, our company has expanded in Ile-de-France, or it has purchased a building in Ile-de-France, so we are getting some usage out of our investment pool, which was very much the idea. We want to at least get something back from our investment pool rather than this nothing. It's really not as much as we would like to be receiving, which is fine because the run is psychotic. But it's interesting to see how all of these cascading effects, like as a result of us just not spending as much money, is really, really just like wrecking our economy because of the depressing effect it has on the economy because this money's getting sucked out and nothing is happening to it. We're not like running a deficit that is stimulating. We're running, in some spots, we're running a deficit that really just doesn't feel like it helps out the economy and is creating other struggles for us, like, for example, not being able to run enough trade routes to really make external trade shine as it should. We're facing down what is going to be probably a relatively big war with the USA, which is a little rough considering we have this massive negative balance. And the thing is when you have no construction, there's really not much you can rake back in order to run a sort of positive to make everything more positive. And we're even going max taxes, low government wages. And I think this should be like a little bit of an example of just how depressing, not running all this construction is as well. We might even have to downsize the military. We really don't want to do that because the little 15 construction we have, of which we are only able to utilize 7.5, we do not want to have to rebuild armies. So deleting army is really, really not something we want to do. Same thing with deleting any sort of government building whatsoever. And so this is a little bit spooky, but I think we're going to conclude the episode here. We did want to kind of go over some of the stuff we're following here, which is that we're looking at the total GDP of our power block here, and we started off with like roughly 18 million. Now we're up to 33 million. A lot of this is just expansion, but if you look, our GDP really hasn't gone up at all. But if you look over here, the total GDP of people we've released, that is like Bohemia, Bavaria, Transylvania, Galicia, Ludomeria, all of these are tracking up such that the combined value is over 18 million. The other thing that we are kind of keeping an eye on is that our financial district number and our company headquarter number, we started with 41 total after we had released the countries that we had released at the start. Still haven't released Hungary, still kind of a little bit leery about doing it, although it might actually increase our income, funnily enough, through giving away a chunk of our military, but I'm not sure if we can navigate with zero construction after releasing Hungary, so we're not quite doing it yet. But the financial districts here, we're up to a combined total of 109, up from 41, so things are coming along, but I'm actually like just really unsure if we're even outpacing the AI. I think that the total growth of our power block, excluding countries that we have just conquered or subjugated into our power block, I think it's maybe just kind of on par with like what France is doing, although to be fair, the first 10 years we had the zero construction sectors, which completely cut off any type of investment pool usage, which was kind of interesting to discover. Definitely kind of set out with the idea of doing zero construction, but that it just completely shuts off the investment pool mechanic was a bit of a vibe. So I hope this was interesting. This has definitely been kind of interesting to play and see just an illustration of just how powerful like creating demand demand for this sort of thing is, I was expecting us to be running a huge positive balance. And to be fair, we are paying out a little bit in bankrolls and funding lobbies, but I was expecting to be running a huge positive balance this entire time and running low taxes, this sort of thing. And the fact that we just like haven't gotten the economy rolling at all because there's zero construction, so we're basically with, for the most part, a lot of our starting buildings, and just how even with zero construction, we can barely afford Austria's starting army, and a slightly expanded navy. This has been absolutely fascinating, especially the talking to newer players who are like, oh, I'm running a negative balance and I go like into a debt spot, or like, and I just run out of money and like this type of stuff. You like have to increase construction. And then you also have to run like higher taxes in order to facilitate this, to develop the economy such that you don't like run out of money. And if you don't try and increase construction and you just try and like run with your starting buildings, even on someone like Austria, which to be fair, us releasing these guys actually even helps us out for running this balance, it's still hard to balance this budget. And so this has been interesting to see as well. Anyways, hope you enjoyed. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. We are going to be continuing this run. At least a little bit. I think that we can push this and develop it. We've only gotten one country investing in us, and so I definitely think this would be way, way stronger with Prussia, but our goal is to hopefully be able to get a couple hundred, free construction rather than just this 24 construction. To be fair, Bavaria is giving us 24 construction here, effectively speaking, and then I think that what we are going to do as we continue on is we are probably going to use foreign investment, maybe, with the idea being the decreased cost for nationalization when we have other people building in our country and we already have really high relations with them anyways. We can nationalize their buildings and then put them up for privatization, and then hopefully try and give ourselves more opportunities to drain our investment pool. Anyways, that's how things are going.